Saturday night's games are finished, and we're now sitting in a situation where both the Los Angeles Lakers and the Phoenix Suns are on the verge of both being swept in the first round. Swept. Not one game. Before I get into this, if you aren't subscribed, consider it as you watch the video, and thanks for clicking on it anyways. The Los Angeles Lakers are a team which had championship aspirations going out of the offseason that was viewed as one of the best offseasons in the NBA. Coming off of a Western Conference Finals appearance, they managed to re-sign some of their main guys in Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, and Rui Hachimura, who were all pivotal in specific portions of their run, some more than others. Then, they made sure to build depth around their main core in LeBron and Anthony Davis, making sure to get shooters in Taurean Prince and Christian Wood. They got some center depth to make things easier for Anthony Davis, whose primary position is as a forward, and they signed defenders in Cam Reddish and Gabe Vincent. It was viewed as a good offseason of acquisitions compared to the other teams in the league, and this somewhat followed their previous formula for when they won the championship in 2020. They build guys around their main two in LeBron and AD, and as long as they're healthy, they're a team that is capable of competing for a championship. Fast forward to April, their two best players have been relatively healthy and have played their most games together since 2020 when they won their championship, and they're the 7th seed and are on the verge of getting swept in the first round by the Denver Nuggets. The Phoenix Suns came off of an extremely embarrassing loss in Game 6 against the Nuggets, reminiscent to their Game 7 loss against the Mavericks a year prior, where they were completely outclassed early on in the game. Their most glaring problem was their lack of depth. They had Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Chris Paul, and an unfocused DeAndre Ayton. That was pretty much it. They traded off some of their key role players in Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, along with 5 first-round picks in exchange for Kevin Durant. Off the bench, they had Landry Shamet, Cam Payne, Josh Okogie, Jock Langdale. For a team looking to be serious and be competitive, this just can't be what your depth looks like. No creation or scoring power, no defenders outside of Josh Okogie, and not many playmakers. The only way they could win 2 games against this Nuggets team was hoping that Devin Booker could keep up his historical shooting in the playoffs, and that he and KD would combine for over 70 every night. But as you can see, there's a ceiling to that. And so to improve their team, you think their main goal would be to stack up on their depth to better surround their superstars with quality talent. Players that best supplement their core's main skill sets. So they went and traded Chris Paul and multiple future first-round picks in exchange for Bradley Beal. Then they traded DeAndre Ayton, who was falling out with Monty Williams, and they got back Jusuf Nurkic. The main problem was Bradley Beal's contract. He's making $50 million a year, has a no-trade clause, and the contract doesn't really match his production. With Devin Booker, KD, and Beal all on the same team, you're not going to have any cap flexibility. At one point, it felt like they were really just signing anyone that was willing to take the minimum because of the fact that this was a team that had expectations to win a championship or at least make it far in the playoffs. The best player they signed was Grayson Allen, though to be fair, he's been amazing for them this season. In the playoffs, not really. But you go into the season extremely top heavy, but no players to help elevate them because hey, who's going to guard Booker, KD, and Beal? You're telling me that the 3rd best defender has to guard Bradley Beal? This team has to have a higher ceiling than their previous teams, right? They ended off their season as a 6th seed. Were not really impressed in the regular season, at least enough to convince me they were true contenders, especially on the offensive end, considering the top tier scoring talent they possessed. For them to be such a bad 4th quarter team for the majority of the season, that it's just not enough to convince me. One of my main gripes about this team is their lack of a point guard. Coming into this season, they hadn't signed a starting caliber point guard, and so Devin Booker opted to take that role for the team, and I think he did pretty well for that not being his primary position. But it's become very clear that he's best when playing at the 2, where he can come off screens and come off of different actions rather than having so much possession of the ball and having to run the entire offense. Both the Lakers and the Suns have been completely outclassed in each of their series and in each and every game. The Lakers have led by double digits each game and have blown them each and every time. Then once we get to the 4th quarter, they've lost any momentum that they've had before and eventually lose the game. And it's not even as if the Nuggets have been playing their best basketball. In the playoffs so far, they're the worst three-point shooting team at 27%. Their second best player in Jamal Murray has been overall bad this series. Outside of the fourth, that's where he's been dominating. But when you compare it to last year, where he looked like a superstar against them, and their bench, which is not as good as last year, should have been what the Lakers took advantage of. In these non-Jokic minutes, where they have a negative 10 net rating and there's a 21-point swing when he's on versus when he's off the floor, there have been times, especially in Game 3, where they aren't winning those minutes. How do you expect to beat a team when you can't even capitalize on their weaknesses? You can't. In the Suns-Timberwolves series, it's even worse. At least the Lakers have made the game seem competitive going into the fourth. This has been a series where the top two players have not been Kevin Durant or Devin Booker. In reality, it's been Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert. And if you're talking about the third best player in the series, I'd be inclined to say that neither KD or Booker have been that either. One thing I wondered about this series was how well the Minnesota's offense would operate. They were the best defense in all of basketball this season, but their subpar offense was what I felt like could hold them back going into this matchup. But that hasn't even mattered. Not only are the Suns struggling to put up 100 a game, but the Timberwolves are leading the playoffs in points per game. The team that was a below average offense is looking like one of the best against the Suns. They're exposing the Suns' lack of pick and roll defense with Nurkic and Drew Eubanks, which has allowed Gobert to dominate the restricted area, and Anthony Edwards is picking on anyone that steps up to guard him and getting to his spots with ease. On the defensive side of the ball, both Jaden McDaniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker have effectively slowed down both Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, even outplaying both of them in Game 2. Even when the Suns have tried bringing Rudy Gobert out to the perimeter and forcing him to switch, he's been able to hold his own, and his job has been so much easier than it was in Utah now that he has so many good perimeter defenders next to him. He doesn't have to force himself to constantly put two on the ball because his teammates can't stay in front of their man, since he has Anthony Edwards, Jaden McDaniels, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who are all good defenders. For the Suns, the fact that their main three guys are more jump shot oriented and don't really get to the rim can also be one of their main reasons for struggling to score. It might work on a team with less defensive talent, but they're going against a team with multiple players who aren't vulnerable off switches and can prevent them from getting to their spots, making them work for each and every point. On a side note, when I saw that Rudy Gobert was shooting 86% from the line throughout these first three games, maybe it just wasn't meant for the Suns to win this series. So, what is next for both of these teams? Of course, the playoffs isn't over yet, but there is yet to be a team in NBA history to come back down 3-0. Maybe that could change, but I don't think so. What's unfortunate is that both of their futures are very uncertain. The Lakers have to worry about LeBron, who has a player option next season. We don't know how he feels about the state of the team right now, or if he even plans to come back. D'Lo's probably not coming back. At one point in Game 3, he looked extremely disengaged while sitting on the bench, not even in the huddle. Because they are the Lakers, it's not as if this is it for the team. There's still Anthony Davis on the roster. He can still be built around. If I had to guess, I don't think LeBron will be leaving, but there's definitely going to have to be a point where they have to think about a future where LeBron is not on the team. And they did extend Anthony Davis for 3 years, where his contract ends in the 2027-28 season. So I'm pretty sure that's what they're intending to do. That was one of the main reasons they went and got Anthony Davis, for them to compete for a championship, of course, but for him to also take the reins from LeBron at one point. He's one of the best players in the league, and the Lakers are a franchise that is good at attracting the best of the best, so building around AD would be the angle for them moving forward. The Suns, on the other hand, have it far worse. At least the Lakers have a lot of tradable assets and will have multiple first-round picks once the offseason arrives in case LeBron decides to stay and they can look to make some upgrades. The Suns don't have that. Outside of their big three, they don't have anyone with much trade value. They don't have any of their own first-round picks until 2031. They don't have any young talent, and they have 3 max players who are eating up basically all of their cap space, so they won't be able to make any major signings. I can't see there being any significant difference in the roster next year, if they plan to keep all three of them. In a situation like this, what else can you even do? You don't have your own picks, so a rebuild is out of the question, and this big three was only around for one season, so they may even want to run it back again. I think that's the worst possible scenario, but some GMs don't want to admit that they made a mistake, at least indirectly, because trading them is indicating that. Maybe you trade one of them in hopes of getting back players to help round out the roster, but even then you'd have to find a team willing to gut some of their own depth to get top tier talent, and the Suns don't have leverage either. Everyone knows how bad of a situation they're in, so no team is going to force themselves to make a trade with them. How you salvage this situation? I don't even know. Now, as a team, do you regret exchanging all of those pieces for Kevin Durant? I believe that when you have a chance to get someone as good as him, you take it every time. Players like him are who raise your ceiling. Same with Bradley Beal. Even if Chris Paul is still on the roster, it's not changing the result. The Timberwolves are just a far out better team than them from just about everywhere. There also weren't any other players they could realistically go for in that offseason. He was likely the best player available because of the fact that the Wizards were finally looking to rebuild after such a long time. At the end of the day, it's about accepting that these were the results. The previous team was not enough to win it all. You tried to go up and above by making a franchise-changing trade, and you have to live with it. It's just extremely surprising as an NBA fan when you grow up watching these players dominate season after season, and now we're at a point where the conference finals will not feature a LeBron, Steph, or KD. For basically over a decade at this point, the majority of the conference finals and the finals itself featured one of them, two, and sometimes all three of them. It's a sign that we're entering a new era of NBA basketball. Thanks for watching the video, and I know both series have yet to end, but let me know how you think these teams should approach the offseason. Peace.